is that all of our aircraft carriers in the Pacific were out to sea during the attack. That was the first time in the last 6 months, the previous 6 months, that all of our aircraft carriers were out to sea at the same time. So conspiracy theorists point to Roosevelt knowing that we needed those aircraft carriers to win. So knowing the attack was coming, he got them out of there and allowed the rest of the fleet to get hit. I don't buy it. Okay. There's a lot of stuff on the internet. Like, I think there's a website called the Mother of All Conspiracies. And they go through a litany of things that we should have seen that we didn't see. And as you guys saw in the movie, we had radar. Like that morning, as they were, coming, the first wave had 191 planes. They chalked it up to, a group of B-17s flying in from the mainland. Okay. They didn't double check that, like they just kind of, oh, okay. And then, guys, that morning, about 6:20, the USS Ward spotted a large Japanese submarine outside the harbor. But our messages were coded too. Okay, so they had to decode the message from the USS Ward. That took about 30 minutes. It's a Sunday morning. Okay, and so like people are asleep before 7 o'clock. And so that could have put us on higher alert. The radar situation only gave us a few minutes of advance, it would only give us a few minutes to go on alert. Now that may have allowed us to get some airplanes in the air. It didn't. So the result probably would have been the same. But either way. So, guys with conspiracy theories, you're welcome to go down those holes, those rabbit holes, and look it up, and your mind wanders, and you think, it's like with these elections, like the 2020 election. People feel like, a lot of people feel like there were shenanigans, that there was things that weren't done right. And a lot of those people were running for office yesterday. A lot of them lost. Okay. It's interesting. The 9/11 thing, I don't buy that either. Like, we knew, we let it happen, that sort of thing. I don't buy it. Now the JFK thing, is that a conspiracy?
He was killed.
Or was it a lone wolf? Is it just Lee Harvey Oswald acting alone, or was there a conspiracy?
I thought that conspiracy theory was that the CIA took him out.
Some people think the CIA. Some people think it was the Cubans working with the CIA. Some people think it was Lyndon Baines Johnson, the vice president. Some people think it was the mob. JFK's brother, Bobby, was the attorney general, and he was going after the mob. The guy that shot Oswald, Jack Ruby, had connections to the mob. I don't know. I believe there was a conspiracy. I don't think Oswald acted alone. I don't know exactly what happened. Trump said he was going to release all the stuff. Because, I think it was after 50 years, they were supposed to release all the stuff. The top secret stuff about it. And Trump didn't release it. So, maybe some of those people are still alive. Yeah.
Was it JFK that was involved with Marilyn Monroe? Or was that?
Yeah. And others. Mm-hmm. And other women.
Yeah, but wasn't it his brother that was having an affair with her?
Did he have an affair with her too, Bobby?
I thought so.
Oh.
I thought the story is that the brother was having an affair. So Marilyn was like, you need to tell your wife, or like, I'm going to go and release this to the public, and that's why she was killed.
I don't know. Yeah. She died of a drug overdose. So did Elvis. So did Jimi Hendrix. So did Janis Joplin. So did Jim Morrison. Yeah. Just had that one lady one actress that died in a car accident. She was all hopped up on drugs. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So I can't tell you what happened. Okay, definitively. We had begun to break the Japanese naval code. Okay, this was a project known as Magic to break their code. So like when one ship is talking to another ship, they don't speak in Japanese. They have codes. Okay, so actually, my daughter Lily did her NHD project on this code breaking of the Japanese codes. This is why smart people are important, again, to figure this out. So by the time December 7th rolled around, guys, we had a good idea that the Japanese were about to go on the attack. Like, we knew they were about to mount something big. Where, though? Obviously, guys, what we showed, the Philippines, Malaya, the Dutch East Indies, those places, obviously, the island chains, but this idea of them coming across the Pacific and hitting us. So we knew the Japanese aircraft carrier force had left Japan, okay? So we went looking for it. We sent out search planes, we sent out ships all throughout the Pacific looking for it. Talk about this yesterday? Yeah, we're looking for this aircraft carrier. Now, in the end, guys, this Japanese attack force will have 31 ships, okay? 5 aircraft carriers. And so what the Japanese did, they went north up into the Aleutian Islands. Did somebody read a book in here about that? Like the Alaskan Aleutian Islands? Okay. Man, there was somebody I read a book review, and I can't figure out who it was. But anyhow, they actually took one of these islands, the Japanese did. So as far as Japanese taking American territory in World War II, the Philippines, and one of these Aleutian Islands, okay? But they attacked us from the north. So we were out looking for them, and they came in and attacked from the north. So they're going to catch us by surprise, okay? And if you study, warfare, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, or Clausewitz, who's, the go-to guy for studying war. Surprising your opponent is one of the biggest advantages you can have in warfare. Okay, and guys, it's going to take place on a Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Or just before 8 a.m. Okay, and so here's a couple photographs. One thing, and I would have done this before I showed you the attack scene in the movie. This is a Japanese torpedo plane. In the movie, you can see it. They built little boxes, open air boxes over the propellers of the torpedoes. Because, like, if you drop a torpedo in the Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, it's not going to hit anything except the target usually, right? But when you're dropping these things in a harbor, they could hit the ground and stop these things from being effective. So they built those little open air boxes. The Japanese will have dive bombers, high-level bombers, and fighters, your Zeros and stuff like that. This is the Kaga, one of the Japanese aircraft carriers, and I have some more pictures here. But this actually, the Japanese took this photograph. This is preparing to take off on the attack of Pearl Harbor here. We got that from the Japanese. So this is pretty much what goes down that day, guys. Just before 8 a.m., you saw it in the movie, like you're living in paradise, right? You're in Hawaii. You're a sailor, or you're a flyboy, or you're a nurse, or something like that. It's Saturday night. What are you going out and doing? You're out having fun, and then probably sleeping in, unless good Christian folk like you guys getting up and going to mass early in the morning on a Sunday, right? Yeah. People are sleeping. The military does stuff on Sundays, but it is scaled back on the weekends, like it is for most things. So Japanese diplomats in the previous days leading up to this were talking peace at the White House. And so we were really caught off guard by this. I don't know if I talked about this with you yesterday. Let me make sure I cover it. We thought this attack on Pearl Harbor would come in the way of sabotage. Did I talk about that with you yesterday? Yeah. So the surprise happened. So the first wave of Japanese aircraft will include 191 aircraft. Yeah, that's a lot of freaking planes, all right? The second wave will be 170. So, I think all total there was like over 350 Japanese aircraft used here, okay? Obviously, guys, this is devastating. We still refer to this as the greatest military disaster in American history. Obviously, 9/11 was a civilian disaster. But as far as, the amount of military equipment killed in one, destroyed in one day, it was a massive defeat. The number of people that die is not, we've had much worse days in American history, like Chancellorsville or Gettysburg. You know what I mean? We've had much worse days. Okinawa, Iwo Jima, places like that. But I'll give you some exact numbers on some of these, the number of ships that were hit, and the number of servicemen and women that were killed. So the next day, so Roosevelt, actually that day on the 7th, I think Hawaii is about 6-hour time difference than DC. So while this was happening, it was the early afternoon in DC. So Roosevelt was getting updates throughout the day. Obviously, the country is in shock. Okay. Now, you can talk to your parents about this. I don't know. On 9/11, when people kept talking about the World Trade Center, guys, I had no idea what that was. I just knew it as the Twin Towers. You know what I mean? The World Trade Center, what is that? Most Americans don't know what Pearl Harbor is on December 7th, 1945. You understand? It's out in Hawaii, okay? Most people don't know. We don't have television, and we have movies, but people don't know what Pearl Harbor is. So it becomes a household name, like immediately, right? So most of this information is via radio. So if you have a great grandparent that's still alive that, is maybe 90, they would remember like when they heard about Pearl Harbor. You know what I mean? In order to be alive and at Pearl Harbor when it happened, to be a sailor there, you would have to be in your late 90s. Okay, so a lot of the stories, people that survived this are gone. The next day, Roosevelt calls a joint session of Congress, gives a speech in which he, this famous line, December 7th, 1941 is a date which will live in infamy, that a state of war exists between the United States and the Empire of Japan. And he asked for a declaration of Congress, and Congress will, a declaration of war, and Congress will certainly pass that. Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, 3 days later, Germany and Italy will declare war on the United States. Okay, so now we are at war with the Axis powers of Germany, Italy, and Japan. Now, just to give you a little bit more specific numbers here, as far as the casualties, we had 2,300 servicemen die. 2008 were Navy, 710 Navy wounded. Marines lost 109, 69 wounded. The Army lost 218 servicemen, 364 wounded, and then civilian 70 with 35 wounded. Okay, now the ships that were hit. Okay, some of them were destroyed, like unusable. Okay, but many of them we were able to repair. Okay. So here's kind of a list here. The lost ships were the Arizona. And has anybody here been to Pearl? I asked this yesterday, sorry. So if you go to Pearl Harbor today, the memorial is built over the Arizona. It still sits at the bottom of the harbor. I mean, you can see it. There were a lot of sailors inside that ship that could not get out. And so, they tried to get them out. It capsized. The Arizona did. And sunk. And they just couldn't get those people out. And so they decided that would be their final resting place. So those people they're still there. Those sailors are buried at sea in the water, and they built a memorial over the top of the USS Arizona. Okay. The battleship Oklahoma was destroyed. Target ship Utah was destroyed, and 2 destroyers, the Cassin and the Downs, were destroyed. Now, there were several that were sunk or beached, but salvageable. Those included the battleships West Virginia, California, and Nevada. They were able to repair those ships, okay? And a mine layer called the Ogalla. And then we had a bunch that were damaged, but were repairable. So battleships Tennessee, Maryland, and Pennsylvania were damaged. Cruiser Helena in Honolulu and Raleigh. There was a destroyer Shaw that was damaged, a seaplane tender, and a repair ship that were fixed, okay? Aircraft destroyed, it says 150 here, 96 Army aircraft, 92 Navy, but the bulk were damaged. So 128 more Army planes damaged and 31 more Navy aircraft damaged. Okay, so the bulk of what we had at Pearl Harbor, those planes were damaged or destroyed. Now, by contrast, what did the Japanese lose? They had 31 ships and 353 aircraft. In addition, they had 1 large submarine that was sunk and 5 2-man midget subs that had made it into the harbor. Those were sunk. Total deaths for the Japanese, 64 men plus an unknown number of crew members on the large sub, so probably around 100. The Japanese lost 29 planes. And in the movie you saw Dory Miller, the cook, the black cook, played by Cuba Gooding Jr., he shot down 5 Japanese planes from that anti-aircraft gun, and he received the Navy Cross for doing so. Okay, he was the guy that was boxing. Okay, so Dory Miller's obviously a famous American hero. Okay, Luke Layden read a book after the war. Dory Miller was working at the docks in Chicago, and there was a big explosion. And it came from like where all these African American workers were working, and they were working under bad working conditions, and so they refused to go back to work. And Luke's book talked about how they wanted to put them all in jail for not going back to work. They were like, people are going to die under these working conditions. So it's actually Dory Miller's fame that helped prevent those guys from going to jail, which was good. So yeah, pretty bad stuff here, guys. Now, unlike 9/11, which is really the most documented event in human history, like as soon as 9/11 started, like people got out their cameras, their phone cameras, and were taking pictures of this. We don't have a lot of that from Pearl Harbor. Okay, this is another Japanese photograph here. This is Ford Island. I think I showed this to you yesterday. So this is Battleship Row. This photograph shows 2 aircraft here. This may have been right at the beginning of the attack. You see this large, I think it's an explosion. It could be like the picture faded or something. To me, it looks like an explosion. So that may be the very beginning of the attack. And so you get a lot of stories. From people that survived. I had a former baseball player of mine whose grandfather was on Ford Island when the attack took place. But like I said, most of those folks are gone now. Like, this is one of the more famous photographs. I can't tell you what ships those are. But yeah, it's a pretty devastating attack. So guys, almost immediately, I mean, people heard about this, Congress declared war, and then, people started joining, you know. It happened in December, so you got Christmas break coming up. That's back when they still called it Christmas break in this country, instead of, your winter holiday or whatever they call it now, okay? So if you got permission at the age of 17 from your parents, you could join. So like a lot of guys, left school, left high school, went and joined, signed up, volunteered, and then obviously the draft continued as well. Okay, so we got a long road back, but this is going to unite the American people and give us, a lot of will to fight, because it's going to be a struggle. So we'll go through that when we get back after the test on Monday. So tomorrow will be a review day, and I'll prep you on